My delivery driver started using my first name in week 2. I let it slide. Then, one afternoon, he leaned on my door frame and asked how I was holding up now that Rachel had cleared out. I'm Corbin, by the way. 38. I cut video out of the spare bedroom of a little rental on the north side of Fort Wayne, mostly gear demos and review stuff for a couple of music channels. Sweetwater is right up the road, so there's a whole scene of us out here doing that. Which matters for exactly one reason. I am home basically all day, every day. And after Rachel took the dog and the good couch and got herself an apartment across town, I was home alone all day, every day. A guy who works from his house orders a lot of packages. So I got to know my driver the way you get to know a bartender, a little at a time, without ever once deciding to. His name was Lonnie. Big, friendly, talked fast, always had a story about his route. And at first the stuff he knew about me felt like being noticed, not watched, if that makes any sense. He knew my shoulder was messed up because he'd handed me the sling in a box. He knew I did audio because everything I got said Sweetwater down the side. That's just a man paying attention to his own route, and I told myself exactly that, probably 100 times, mostly because I liked him. But then it stopped tracking back to the boxes. He asked me one day if the woman who'd come by that Friday was going to be a regular thing, and I hadn't had anybody over that a person in the street could have seen. She'd parked in the garage, we'd gone straight inside. Another time he mentioned, real easy, that I kept later hours than my ex used to, up past 2 most nights. The only window on the front of that house is the one behind my desk, and my desk lamp is the only light on in the whole place at 2 in the morning. He wasn't reading my packages anymore. He was reading me. And the reason I never said anything, honestly, is that he was so warm about all of it that pushing back would have made me feel like the crazy one. The thing that finally tipped it happened at the mailbox. He caught me out there on a Saturday, no truck, just walking by on foot, which I didn't even clock as strange at the time, and he said he was glad I'd finally gotten some sleep. I'd looked rough all week. And I had been up bad all week. But the only place on earth a person learns that is from the light behind that one front window, burning at 3 and 4 in the morning. I brought it up to my buddy Reese over a Coney downtown, kind of laughing about my weird delivery guy, and Reese didn't laugh. He said, Corbin, that man is walking your neighborhood on foot on his day off. And I didn't have a thing to say back, because he was right, and I'd been working so hard not to see it. By then Lonnie had started tucking my boxes inside the screen door instead of leaving them on the mat, and everybody thought that was so considerate when I mentioned it, out of the rain, what a sweetheart of a driver. Except I'd never told him I used that screen door, or that the mailbox side of the porch gets the afternoon sun and cooks anything you leave on it. He'd learned the house. He'd learned it better than Rachel had in 3 years. Then things started showing up that I hadn't ordered. Small stuff, and that was the part that got under my skin. A phone charger. A 4-pack of the exact energy drink I keep on my desk. A pair of work gloves in my size. Every one came with a real label, my name, my address, and every single one, when I went and checked my accounts, matched no order at all. One of them, the charger, had a little slip printed in the box that just said, enjoy. No name. I threw it in the trash and then took it back out and looked at it for a long time. So I did a thing that felt paranoid even while I was doing it. I quit ordering. Cold, nothing, for 2 straight weeks. I drove out to the store like it was 1995. And I sat at that desk in the dark those 2 weeks with the lamp off, working under a headlamp like an idiot, watching the street. 9 days in, a little after 4 in the afternoon, his truck rolled up. I had not ordered a thing in 9 days. I watched him park, get out with nothing in his hands, no box, no envelope, walk up onto my porch, and just plant himself there. I could see the top of his head from behind the shade. He stayed up there a while, close to a full minute, not knocking, just facing the door I was standing on the other side of. Then he walked back to the truck and pulled away. And when I finally opened up, there was a slip taped to the door. One of those "sorry we missed you" tags. Filled out. Timed. For a delivery that never existed, at a house he knew for a fact I was sitting inside of. There was a number on the bottom of that slip, the depot, so I called it, and I would love to tell you I was calm, but my hand was not steady. I got a supervisor, a woman who sounded like she'd been awake for 2 days, and I laid the whole thing out, the packages I never bought, the stop that afternoon with nothing delivered. She went quiet in a way that told me she'd heard some shape of this before I got to the end of it. She pulled up the route while I waited. And she told me, picking her words careful, like she was deciding what she was allowed to hand me, that Lonnie had swapped shifts twice to keep my block, and that he had marked more than 30 stops complete at my address in 2 months. In those same 2 months, I had ordered 11 times. 30-some stops. 11 boxes. She read the dates off to me, and I couldn't tell you how long I stood there in the kitchen with the phone against my ear, but I remember most of them were weekday afternoons, and one of them, she said, almost under her breath, was a Sunday. They pulled him off the route that same day. About a week later, a sheriff's deputy took my statement and told me Lonnie had been let go, and that he lived, as it turned out, 1 exit up the interstate from me. That is the whole official part of it. There isn't any more. Nothing they could charge ever came out of it, because standing on a man's porch is not a crime, and knowing his name is not a crime, and neither of those was the part that stuck to me anyway. The part that stuck is the arithmetic she read me off the phone. For 2 months I thought I had a friend on my route. What I actually had was a man taking attendance. Every "good afternoon, Corbin." Every "how's the shoulder?" Every dumb little joke at my door. I'd been filing all of it under company, this nice guy who noticed me when I was pretty low and pretty alone, and he noticed me all right. He was keeping account of which afternoons the divorced guy was home by himself with the shades pulled, and I helped him do it. I stood in the doorway and chatted. I confirmed it out loud, 40 times over, "Thanks man, have a good one. I've got a locker at a shipping place 20 minutes from here now, and my name is not on it, and nothing comes to the house." Because the worst thing I carried out of that winter is not that a stranger can find out you live alone. It's that you will tell him yourself, smiling, if he carries your boxes up and asks about your day.
So I ordered dinner in almost every night. I work late. I live by myself. I quit apologizing for both of those a long time ago. And for about 2 months, most of that food came to my door with the same driver behind it. I'll call myself Simone. I do insurance claims here in Spokane, which is the kind of job where March and April will eat you alive, and during the crunch I am not cooking a thing. I'm at my desk till 10. Then I'm on the couch thumbing at an app, ordering pad thai from the place down on the South Hill. For a couple of months, most of those orders showed up with a guy I'll call Kellen, because Kellen is the name the app put on my screen. Hold on to that, because it turns out the app was lying to me the entire time. The first strange thing was sweet, or I made it sweet, which is worse. He left a note in the app, the little delivery note, and it said, "You always order for one. Hope somebody's looking after you." And I hear how that lands now, saying it out loud. But at 9 at night in a bad month, a gentle word from a stranger does something to you. And I tapped back a little thumbs up and thought about it more than I'd like to admit. Then the notes quit coming through the app and started coming to my actual phone. Text messages from a number I had never handed to anybody. "Hey, it's Kellen, your driver, threw in extra napkins tonight." I told myself the app must pass your number along. That's got to be a thing, right? It is not a thing. I checked. Then it was, saw your light was still on up there. Figured you were awake. My light. He knew which windows on that building were mine. Somewhere in there I went from flattered to cold, and I wish I could give you the exact night it turned, but you talk yourself out of your own alarm in stages, slow, especially when you're tired and a little lonely and the person scaring you is being so nice about it. There was one text I still think about. He wrote, "You look good with your hair down." And I had worn it down exactly one time that week, to go down to the mailboxes in my own lobby at 8 in the morning, 30 seconds down and back. He hadn't seen that from a car with a bag of food. He'd been somewhere he could watch the lobby. I stood in my kitchen holding my phone and did that thing where you slowly turn around and look at your own windows like they might be looking back. For a while I still opened the door for the food. This was all before the Thursday. And one week I ordered under a fake name, Beth, just to see. He handed the bag across and said, "Real light, so it's Beth now, huh?" Winked at me. Thought it was adorable. I shut the door and sat down on the floor of my own kitchen and didn't get up for a bit. The night it stopped living just in my head. I had not ordered anything. I need to be clear about that part. It was a Thursday, and I know it was a Thursday because Thursday is the one night I don't work late. So I was on the couch in sweatpants with the TV going, and my buzzer went off. And there he was, down in the entry, a paper bag in one hand, looking up toward the intercom like I had already let him in. I hit the talk button and told him I hadn't ordered anything. And he said, "Sure you did. Your usual," and then he told my usual back to me. The pad thai medium heat, extra lime. The 2 spring rolls. The exact order I'd placed off that app maybe 6 times, brought to my building on a night I never asked for it, from a restaurant that, when I checked afterward, had nothing from me on the books at all. He'd put it together from memory. And he was down there holding it, waiting for me to come down and collect a dinner I hadn't bought, the way a boyfriend stands there with flowers. I did not go down. I sat very still until he finally set the bag on the entry floor and walked off, and I watched that bag sit there through the window for an hour before I could make myself go get it or throw it out. I called the app's safety line the next morning, shaking, and I gave them the name, Kellen, and the dates, and this is where the floor came out from under me. They had never had a driver named Kellen assigned to me. Not one single time. The account that had brought me all that food for 2 months, the name sitting on every one of those orders, belonged to a woman in a suburb of Seattle, 300 miles from my couch, who had, they eventually pieced together, rented her verified account out to somebody for cash. There's a whole gray market of it, apparently, people renting out approved driver accounts. So the man who had been coming to my door for 2 months, who had my number, who knew my windows, who could recite my dinner order back to me word for word, had never once been a name I could put a finger on. Every receipt in the system named a stranger I had never heard of. The face down at my buzzer belonged to no account on earth. They shut the rented account down. They were very sorry. They gave me a credit toward my next order, which, thank you so much. The police took a report, and they were honest with me at least, that a man bringing you food you didn't order is not yet a crime, that they had no name and no face to hang a name on, that if he came back I should call right away. He did not come back. That's the only mercy this one has in it, and it does not feel like mercy. It feels like a breath I'm still holding, because I never found out who he was, and that is the entire thing I carry out of it. There was no face with a name under it at the end. There was a rented account, and a stranger's receipt, and a smile 2 inches tall on the little screen by my door. He is somewhere right now with my phone number and my address and my dinner order all sitting in his head, and I don't know his name, and I would not know his face if he sat down beside me on the bus tomorrow, because I only ever saw it 2 inches tall through an intercom. I changed my number that same week. I don't get anything delivered anymore, not food, not packages. I drive down and pick it up myself, even in January, even when the ice makes that hill a genuinely bad idea, and I sit in the lot and watch the door before I ever get out of the car. And every so often, some totally ordinary night, my buzzer goes when I'm not expecting a soul, and my whole body drops straight into ice water, because it might be a package I forgot about, or it might be dinner I didn't order. And there is no way in the world to know which one until I go and look.
The last package that man ever left me was empty. I know that for a fact because I opened it in an emergency room, working the packing tape loose left-handed while a doctor on the other side of the curtain finished setting the hand I couldn't use. Let me back up, because that sentence needs a whole house built around it. Silas, 42. I run drain and pipe out of a van here in Roanoke, Virginia, the Star City. You can see that big star lit up on Mill Mountain from the end of my street. My wife, I'll call her Tessa, is a travel nurse, and that is the load-bearing fact of this entire thing. Tessa takes contracts, 3 weeks somewhere, then a stretch home, and when she's on a contract it is just me and the dog in that house, and her little car is gone out of the driveway the whole time she's away. Anybody who bothered to watch that driveway would know down to the day which weeks I was on my own. It took me way too long to understand somebody had been watching that driveway for months. We get a lot of deliveries, we always have. Tessa orders her scrubs and half the house, and I get parts for jobs. So a regular driver was just part of the week, no different than the mailman. Big, easy guy, I'll call him Merrick, that's close enough. And for most of a year he was nothing but pleasant. The way it started to tip was so small and so helpful that I actually thanked him for it. My porch faces the street, but I come and go through the side door by the carport. Everybody who knows me knows that, and 1 week my boxes just started being at the side door instead of the porch. Tucked in neat, up out of the weather. I figured he'd seen the worn path in the grass and was being decent about it. What I did not think about, at the time, was what it means that a man had worked out which door I actually walk through. Then it was the little comments. He asked me one afternoon, real friendly, if my wife traveled for work, said he'd noticed the small car came and went in chunks. And I said yeah, sure, without a thought in my head, because that is just small talk with your delivery guy, you answer him. A few weeks on, Tessa gone again, he handed me a box and said, bet it gets quiet with just you rattling around in there. I laughed it off. But something underneath it had started to hum, because I had not told him she was gone that week, not a word, and he'd read the empty spot in the driveway and done the arithmetic. And worse than that, he wanted me to know he'd done it, the same way a man will let you know he noticed your new truck. Tessa came home. The car was back in the drive, and for 3 weeks nothing happened at all, and I let the whole thing go soft and stupid in the back of my head, the way you do. Told myself I'd read a lonely, friendly man completely wrong. Then her next contract started. The little car pulled out at 5 in the morning in the dark, and that same week the knocking started coming at night. First night, late, maybe 11, one knock, and by the time I got to the door there was a box on the mat and no truck anywhere on the street. Strange, but couriers run stupid hours now, I let it go. Second time was closer to midnight, and that time I caught the shape of him already walking off down the dark, no truck, no headlights, nothing, just a man in a delivery vest on foot in the middle of the night on my street. That is when I quit sleeping right. And I did the thing you're supposed to do. I called the company the next morning, and they told me flat that they had no evening deliveries on the books for my address, none, that nobody from their outfit had been to my house after 4 in the afternoon in weeks. So then I'm standing in my kitchen with a very simple, very bad question. Who was leaving the boxes? The night it actually happened, I was up anyway. The dog was restless and so was I, and the knock came a little after 11. Except this time, before I even got near the door, I heard the handle move. The side door handle, the one by the carport, the one only I use, turning slow, testing itself. Then a soft knock, and Merrick's voice through the door, easy as a Sunday. Got a package here, needs a signature. Silas, sorry it's so late, buddy. A signature. At 11 at night. I looked through the side glass, and there was no truck, no scanner, nothing in his hands but one box, and every wrong thing I had spent a year talking myself out of stood straight up all at once. I should have called it in right then and kept that door shut. I know. I have gone over that 1,000 times. But a year of being made a fool of inside my own house came up my throat hot, and I opened the door on the chain and told him to set the box down and get gone. And he brought the box up to the 6 inches of gap the chain gave him, and I want to lay this part out exactly, because it is the picture I have never once been able to put down since. He held that box up into the gap, and it was too light. You could see it in the way it moved, an empty box, taped up like a real one, no label anywhere on it. And while my eyes were on the box, his other hand was already coming up out of frame. He hit the door with his whole shoulder. The chain tore right out of that old soft wood, and then he was inside my kitchen, and the empty box was on my floor, bouncing, loud. I'm not going to walk you through every second of the next couple of minutes, partly because some of it just is not in order in my head anymore, and I've made a kind of peace with not forcing it. There was a lot of noise. The dog, gone out of his mind. Me. He had something in his hand. I was sure it was a flashlight. The deputy figured later it was a short pry bar, and it caught me over the eyebrow, then across the back of my hand when I finally got that hand up in front of my face. What I remember clean, the one clean thing, is the sound my hand made against the edge of the counter when I went down, and thinking, in this flat calm little voice while the whole rest of me was screaming, well, that's going to need a cast. What turned it was the dog. Honest to God, 70 pounds of terrified shepherd is a serious problem to solve, and Merrick did the math one more time and decided I wasn't worth it and went back out the way he'd let himself in. I got the door shoved to with my shoulder and my good hand and slid down the front of it onto the floor and did not move off that spot until the sun came up. They got him, and I'll give you that one sentence because I figure you've earned it. They got him about a week later. He had driven for the company for real a couple of years back, before they let him go, and when they let him go he had kept the vest. That is the entire official ending you get from me, because it is not the part that changed anything. Here's what changed me. The hand healed a little crooked, and it aches when the weather comes down off the Blue Ridge, and I've got a thin white line through my eyebrow I see in the mirror every morning, and none of that is it either. It's the doorbell. We stayed in that house, Tessa and me. We decided we were not going to hand him the house on top of everything else. But I cannot answer my own front door anymore. Somebody knocks and my bad hand starts moving before my brain has caught up, and I have to stand in the hall and breathe and tell myself out loud that it's 2 PM and there's a truck at the curb and it's a teenager in shorts with a clipboard. Because here is the thing nobody warns you about a delivery driver. He is the one stranger on this earth you are trained from childhood to open your door for. You hear the knock, you see the vest, and something a lot older than good sense reaches straight for the lock. Merrick understood that. He understood the vest was a key that fit every door on his route, and he understood the empty driveway would tell him which nights I'd open mine with nobody else home. Tessa keeps her contracts close to home these days. I have never once asked her to, and we don't talk about why. And on the night she is gone, when the little car is out of the drive, I sleep on the couch by the side door with the dog and a pipe wrench I keep down there on the floor, and I lie awake running the only arithmetic that man ever left me with, which is that the safest looking person who will ever walk up to your house is the exact one you'll unlock the door for in the dark without once stopping to ask whether he came to deliver anything at all.